The NFL season is a week away, so this is the time to cram in and prep for your fantasy football drafts. Well, Joe and I are here with you today to talk about wide receiver rankings and tiers. We're going to give you the top 30. You're not going to want to miss these shocking rankings.
Hike!
So Joe and I are going through 30 wide receivers with 4 tiers. So Joe, why don't you share with the people, who do you have in tier 4?
Yeah, in tier 4 at number 30, I've got Terry McLaurin, then Mike Evans at 29, Mike Williams at 28, Chris Godwin at 27, DeAndre Hopkins at 26, and Brandon Ayuk coming in at number 25.
Yeah, so for me, I've got number 30 as Courtland Sutton, 29 Drake London, 28 Juju Smith-Schuster, 27 Deontay Johnson, 26 Devontae Adams, and 25 Christian Kirk. And that's the end of the tier. This is a very interesting tier between you and me because both of us have players in this tier that we don't have in our top 30. So I do not have Mike Evans, Mike Williams, Chris Godwin, Terry McLaurin. And then you don't have Courtland Sutton and Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah, those two I don't have. After seeing yours and looking at my list, I kind of wonder if I should have, Courtland Sutton possibly number 30 instead of Terry McLaurin. I'm not the highest on Terry McLaurin, and then also with that turf toe injury, I'm a little nervous about that. And with Jerry Jeudy going down, I mean, Courtland Sutton could deserve that boost.
Yeah, I'm very concerned about Terry McLaurin and the turf toe. A turf toe can be a nagging injury, and I don't even know how much volume that offense is going to have. It's really hard to project, that Sam Howell offense. So I think for me, that's why I don't really like Terry McLaurin. So that's why I decided not to have him in my top 3. But I do want to have a critique against you. In our quarterback rankings video, you had Baker Mayfield as the number 32 ranked quarterback, and yet you believe he's supporting 2 top 30 receivers. So if he's going to do that, he must have a decent amount of passing yards. So what is the logic behind that?
Well, I mean, I don't like Baker Mayfield, and, but it doesn't. I think the Buccaneers, I don't expect them to be very good. I think they're going to have to pass quite a bit to come back in games. So, I mean, while I don't think Baker Mayfield is that great of a quarterback, and yes, he was my number 32 guy, these guys could have some wide receiver value here.
But how could he possibly rank 32 if he's going to support 2 top 30 receivers?
I don't know.
Might have to go back to the workshop there and bump up Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, that's definitely a fair question. I mean, it's definitely something I could take a look at on, just kind of the way these guys felt as I was going through the wide receiver tiers. And, I'd done the quarterback tiers before, so I guess I didn't really consider that. And when I was, piping these wide receiver projections in.
Yeah, so I'll put some heat on me. A glaring player I've got here is Devontae Adams. He got him ranked at 26, which I think is very much against the consensus, and I'd be getting probably a lot of tomatoes thrown my direction for it. I think the reason why, just to back myself up here a little bit, I just do not believe in Jimmy Garoppolo as the quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders. I actually project that he's not going to finish out the year. He's only done it once in his entire career. So I just don't see that happening. I think Aiden O'Connell will come in at some point. You have to remember, Devontae Adams has been a target hog. Last year, he had 180 targets. There is no way that Devontae Adams is going to get 180 targets. He's not even going to near sniff it. And so for me, I still have it as respectable numbers. I have him getting 129 targets, 77 catches, getting over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. But with that, he's just cracking the top 30. He's not getting those top 10, top 15 numbers. I don't think that's an outrageous projection. Last year, he got over 1,500 yards with 14 touchdowns. I don't see him getting that type of volume again with Jimmy G at quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, he might not get the 180 targets. I don't know how many times, Josh McDaniels is going to trust Garoppolo to throw the ball. But I do think that he's potentially going to get more than 126 targets. That feels a little low. I could see him, maybe going to the 150 mark. in overall targets.
So yeah, people are not going to like that at all. But of this tier, Joe, who would you say is a target for you? Just a flyer that you think could be good value for you.
Yeah, these guys, I'd say, Ayuk would be my favorite player of the bunch. I kind of have him lower than I would have thought, but that's the way it is. But I like Brandon Ayuk. We saw him, Brock Purdy seems to like to throw the ball to him, and he was definitely utilized more once Brock Purdy was a quarterback. And, now that he's the starter, I guess maybe there's some concern with everything that happened with his elbow last year, still recovering that. I know I'm not as worried about that, but he'd be my favorite player. I think, his yak potential and what he can do in that offense, definitely especially. He's definitely got a lot of upside.
Yeah, for me, I like Juju. I don't know. I know I even had a comment recently that people asked me, why do I like Juju so much? I mean, he's gotten, other than that year he was injured, he's had over 100 targets over that most recent season with the Chiefs, and then what was that now, 2021 with the Steelers. I think he's going to get over 100 targets again. I think he's going to, Jacoby Myers is gone. Those vacated targets are available, for the taking. I think with Bill O'Brien as the offensive coordinator, this offense is going to be a lot better than what it was last year. I don't think you can rely on Devontae Parker as the other option. They've got Kendrick. I mean, who do they really have as a true receiving option to work with? I don't know. I just feel like he could get used pretty well, and I think he's a sneaky value towards the end of drafts.
He could. I guess the only problem I have with Juju is the fact that he didn't produce that well with the best offense in football. So I just question, he was with Patrick Mahomes. He had the best quarterback in the best offensive system, you could argue, and he really didn't produce that well for fantasy. So what is he going to do? A step down at quarterback and in an offensive system that isn't nearly as friendly?
All right, so let's turn over to a new page here, Joe. What's in tier 3 for you?
And tier 3. So at wide receiver 24, I've got Jahan Dotson. Then at 23, Drake London. 22, Deebo Samuel. 21, Deontay Johnson. 20, Tyler Lockett. 19, DJ Moore. 18, Calvin Ridley. 17, Amari Cooper. 16, T. Higgins. 15, DK Metcalf. And at number 14, Devonta Smith.
Yep. So for me, I got 24 T. Higgins, 23 George Pickens, 22 Deebo Samuel, 21 DK Metcalf, 20 Brandon Ayuk, 19 Devonta Smith, 18 DeAndre Hopkins, 17 Tyler Lockett, 16 DJ Moore, 15 Calvin Ridley, and 14 Jahan Dotson. So honestly, you and I have a lot of commonality here within this tier. Probably the ones that come to mind that I'm looking at right now that's a big difference is I've got Hopkins a lot higher than you, and I also have Jahan Dotson a lot higher than you.
Yeah, and then you also got George Pickens, who did not make my top 30.
That's true, but I mean, if anyone's been watching, I believe that George Pickens is going to skyrocket this year, and I like him better than Deontay Johnson, as you can see, even in my rankings. I just think that he's had big playability as long as he can get those targets. I think he can really become that alpha receiver. And Pittsburgh does a great job of developing receivers. We already started to see some action even in the preseason. I mean, Kenny Pickett, I've knocked him for quite some time, but he looked pretty good. So I've got confidence that he could do really well. And when it comes to Hopkins, I just think he's going to be a target machine. I don't necessarily like Tannehill, but here's the thing. Tannehill supported A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown was a top 12, top 15 receiver year in, year out when he was at the Titans. Now he got even better when he went to the Eagles, and he's with Jalen Hurts. But why are we to think that Hopkins is not going to, basically replace or do just as well as A.J. Brown? Treylon Burks is dealing with an LCL. Kyle Phillips, I mean, who is he? I mean, what's he really going to be able to do? He might get like 50 or 60 targets, but nothing crazy. And they got Chika Okonkwo. And then, yes, Derrick Henry is a running offense, but he's getting older. They're not going to be able to just rely on him. So I know you're giving me looks over there, but to me, I think Hopkins, I don't understand why people are fading him.
Well, I guess my concern is, so you're comparing DeAndre Hopkins to a young AJ Brown, and DeAndre Hopkins is old now. That's my biggest
No,
concern.
he's not old.
He is old. Um,
Older, not old.
why in football age he's old. And I worry about his durability, and I don't disagree that he can be a target hog. And I think the fact that Traylon Burks could potentially miss a couple weeks here definitely helps in that fact. But durability is a big thing for me. I just question that. And then, I feel like the passing volume is not going to be that high anyways. And I feel like DeAndre Hopkins just proposes more name value than anything else.
I mean, you're right. He's 31 years old, but I mean, I believe how old Keenan Allen?
See, to me, like Keenan Allen.
Why? And they're the same age. How could you say that one's old and one's not old?
I get that, but I don't know. Like Keenan Allen, I just feel like because he's a different style receiver than DeAndre Hopkins, and he's not as big of a guy, so that's a little more concerning for me with DeAndre Hopkins.
That's ridiculous. You call DeAndre Hopkins old, and he's 31, and literally the same. Keenan Allen's the same age. He's 31. Oh, he's not old. So then that logic that you're saying is complete nonsense.
Yeah, I mean it could be nonsense, but that's just the feeling to me. I had no idea they were the same age, but it just I don't know. It gives me the illusion that DeAndre Hopkins is old. I guess maybe because it's just so far from the last time we've seen him be an elite receiver and on an offense and actually produce for fantasy. Or Keenan Allen.
What do you mean? Last year he was suspended. That was it. He was relevant before then. Keenan Allen's had dealt with way more injuries than DeAndre Hopkins.
I get that, but like I said, I mean, I feel like, I mean, even when DeAndre Hopkins came back last year, I feel like it wasn't that great. Where when Keenan Allen came back, once he was fully healthy from that hamstring, we saw it.
Well, I think Keenan Allen is actually older too. I think he was born in April, and DeAndre Hopkins was born in January. So, well, okay. So in this group here, who is the guy you're targeting? Who's the guy you really like in your section here for tier 3?
Well, I mean, obviously Jahan Dotson. We targeted him as a second-year breakout player. He's a guy I like a lot. But outside of that, Deontay Johnson would be my other guy. I just feel like you especially and other people, that for people that have guys like Steve in your league, it's going to be great because they're going to leave Deontay Johnson for an amazing value. They like the big glit and glamour of George Pickens making these deep preseason catches. The target volume for him, he's going to get 3 or 4 grabs a game, but they're going to be the deep balls and they're going to be great, spectacular catches that he makes. Meanwhile, Deontay Johnson is going to get you the target volume that you need for the PPR leagues. And he's actually a good receiver. I don't know why people talk about so down on him, but I'm gladly scooping up his value.
Is he going to get over 1,000 yards? He's done it once in his career, and that was with Big Ben.
I mean, I don't know if he'll get 1,000 yards. I think he'll definitely get close to that. And not to mention, there's no way that he's not going to have a touchdown this year. So
okay, so how many is he going to have? He had 8 with Big Ben and 7 with Big Ben, and then he had 0. So how many is he going to have?
Yeah, I'm going to say Deontay Johnson will at least have 5 touchdowns this year.
Okay, I have him for 3, and I have him projected for under 1,000 yards.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean the target volume, and especially in a PPR league, that's going to be there. I definitely think he'll be right around the 1,000-yard mark if he doesn't eclipse it, though.
I haven't projected at 922 yards, but to me, if you're going to say someone who's going to get a lot of touchdowns, why wouldn't George Pickens get more touchdowns than him? He had 4 touchdowns last year. He's gotten way bigger of a bigger playability. I didn't say he was going to
get a lot of touchdowns. I said he was going to get more than 0.
Okay, but how could you say Deontay's better when George Pickens is going to be a bigger red zone threat?
As I'm saying, I don't think because Deontay Johnson's going to have far more receptions than George Pickens because George Pickens is just going to, he's going to be like the Mike Williams player. I think he's just going to have those boom and bust games. It all depends. He's going to be very touchdown dependent because he's just going to get the deep targets down the field. And that's kind of my concern with George Pickens.
I have
Why
no
he didn't
interest.
make
I have
my
no
top 30.
interest in Deontay. You can have him. I have no
That's
problem.
fine. It's just so interesting because for once you don't want the volume guy. The volume guy, you always say you love volume, and the volume guy is Deontay Johnson, and instead you're going with more of the
I think
guy.
Pickens would be able to get as much volume as he does.
Interesting. See, I guess we agree to
Deontay
disagree.
Johnson he drops the ball all the time. He's not a reliable receiver.
I think he can come back from that. Yeah, he's had some drop issues, but so do a lot of guys.
As far as my player in this tier, for me, I've talked about Pickens enough, so I won't talk about him. I think Calvin Ridley is really interesting. I think that Trevor Lawrence is going to have a really, really good year. And as a result, I think he could support him and Kirk. And I think Ridley could really seriously come back and do very well. He's a risky gamble. That's the only thing. I see the path, and depending on in your league, somebody could really, really fall in love with him very quickly, and he gets taken very early. I'd be curious to see where he is value-wise, but if he's on the board, I think he has a really, really good ceiling. I'm just a little worried about the floor.
Yeah, I mean, Ridley is also an interesting player. I was concerned about him like missing the year of football and him coming back and with the new offense. But I was watching. I think it was yesterday. Dan Orlovsky was breaking him down on the film in preseason, and you can already see the confidence and trust that Trevor Lawrence has with him as far as like he's able to anticipate. They already seem to be on the same page, which is very interesting considering this is his first year with the team, first training camp that he's had. They already have a pretty good rapport. So Ridley definitely is an interesting name that I'm on the lookout for.
All right, Joe. So who do you have in your tier 2? So are you enjoying this video so far? Well, if you are, show your support to our new channel by hitting the subscribe button and liking this video. We'll be creating videos all NFL season long, so you're not going to want to miss what we have in store.
Okay, tier 2. So at number 13, I've got Jalen Waddle, Keenan Allen at 12, Chris Olave at 11, Devontae Adams at 10, Garrett Wilson at 9, Amon-Ra St. Brown at 8, CeeDee Lamb at 7, A.J. Brown at 6, and Stephon Diggs at 5.
So I've got a little bit less players in this tier than you. I've got 13 Chris Olave, 12 Jalen Waddle, 11 Cooper Kupp, 10 Amari Cooper, 9 Keenan Allen, and 8 Amon-Ra St. Brown. So pretty similar players. Probably the most glaring thing that the people at home will be seeing is that I have Cooper Kupp not in my top 10 nor in my top 5. Most people would say he's considered top 5. Here's the thing. I like Cooper Kupp. I do. And I think he can be a target machine in LA. But I'm worried about his hamstring. I don't have him playing the entire 17 games. I don't have Stafford playing the entire 17 games. So if those things happen, then I'm very concerned that he's going to be there for the entire season. And looking at his fantasy points per game, he's probably, if I did the math, he's probably in that top 5 area as far as the amount of games I have him playing. But I just don't know. I'm just concerned about it. I really am. Here's the thing. I think Stafford could target him like crazy. But then there's a part of me that says they have some interesting options there. They've got Puka Nacua, Van Jefferson, who I don't think is going to have a bounce back. But I looked in 2 years ago, I think he had almost over 100 targets. I couldn't believe it. I was like, well, okay, well, maybe I have to reconsider that. They've got Tutu Atwell, Ben Skoranek. They've got all these different things. So I don't know. I think people are chasing that Cooper Kupp year that was 2 years ago. And I understand he was unbelievable, but I'm just a little bit cautious that it's going to happen again. He had 192 targets. Like, that is a ton. I have him getting 137 targets and missing a few games. And that would be the second best season he's ever had. I just think it's wrong for people to think he's going to get that many targets again.
Yeah, he might not get that many targets, but I mean, if he's able to stay healthy I mean, he's going to get peppered with targets. I mean, the problem with those other options that you mentioned was their name isn't Cooper Kupp, and him and Stafford just have a rapport. They've had it ever since Stafford came to this team. And, I think Cooper Kupp is one of those guys that are quarterback proof, even if Stafford goes down and doesn't play the full 17 games. And if he's able to, I just don't think it matters. Cooper Kupp is that good of a receiver, and he's that talented.
But I thought you were concerned about him. You say
I am. I mean, I'm just saying, like, I am concerned about his hamstring. Obviously, you don't want to see that happen, but we're already seeing him back at practice. Seems like it's healed up. I'm just saying, like, if he's out there for all 17 games, which is always the risk that you take with Cooper Kupp, but if he's out there, I mean, he's just going to absolutely smash because I know you mentioned those other names, but there's not really a true threat on that offense to take Stafford's eyes off of Cooper Kupp.
Joe, I hate to break it to you, but he's 30 years old. He's getting close to.
No, I know that was one of my arguments in the past videos. I know he's 30. I know he's 30, and he's definitely older, and a guy that's already been an injury risk in the past. But
according to you, one more year and it would be old.
Yeah, I mean, we very well could start to see, him slip a little bit, and then I'll adjust once I do. But I mean, last year he was on a frenetic pace. He was looking amazing. Until he did go down with injury. But that's the one thing. But if he's able to stay healthy, that's why I've got him ranked on him being healthy.
So, I mean, for the most part, I'd say a lot of what you have in here is pretty chalk. So who would you say within this group that you would say you especially would be targeting?
Well, they're all guys we've talked about before. Obviously, Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave are two guys that I love, and especially love for that second year breakout. As we've seen, history tell us, that second year for wide receivers is when they definitely break out. And having Aaron Rodgers there, and watching Hard Knocks, the connection he already has with Garrett Wilson, is already there and established. And I think it just falls into familiarity. He just sees number 17 on the field and just feels like that's his go-to guy.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see. I agree. For me, I think the guy I like is Keenan Allen. I think it goes in line with what I was talking about, 2 episodes ago when we were talking about our quarterback rankings and tiers. I think that Justin Herbert's going to get over 5,000 yards this year. I think he is going to absolutely go nuts. And as a result, I think Keenan Allen will be the biggest beneficiary. He has done so well with Herbert, and he gets a ton of targets. I know he's been the question with him is injuries. Can he stay healthy? But when he is healthy, there's no denying his output. So for me, he's a guy I feel like is great value. He's a safe floor that is going to do really well. And I know you got the age factor. I get that. But I think this is his year. This is it. I think he has 1 year left on his contract. I think he will no longer be with the Chargers after this. I don't think they're going to retain him. I think that's when the real drop off is. I think this is it for Keenan Allen, I think, from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, I really like Keenan Allen's value this year. I think people have been, scared off with his injuries and, everything that he went through with his hamstring, but, he should be fully healed from that. We saw him play pretty well at the end of last year. So he's another guy you mentioned, and I like him as well, especially for the value and just the potential of this Chargers offense, with Kellen Moore coming over from the Cowboys and being the OC, I think is going to change a lot of things for Herbert this year as well.
All right, Joe. So heading over to tier 1, you've got 4 guys. I've got 7. Who do you got?
Yeah, so my 4 guys, starting at number 4, as we've talked about, it's Cooper Kupp. Then at 3, I've got Tyreek Hill. Number 2, I have Jamar Chase. And number 1, I have Justin Jefferson.
So I have these guys all in 7 because I actually have their projections to be pretty close. And so I feel like if you can walk away with one of these guys, I think you'll be in a good place as far as your drafts. But I've got Stephon Diggs at 7, CeeDee Lamb at 6, A.J. Brown at 5, Tyreek Hill at 4, Garrett Wilson at 3, Jamar Chase at 2, and Justin Jefferson at 1.
I mean, it's interesting that you got Garrett Wilson at number 3. He's a guy. That's a spot I've never seen. I haven't seen him, so that is.
Well, I think for me, I know people will think I'm nuts here, but that's okay. When Corey Davis retired, to me, I pushed my chips even further in on him. I had Davis getting possibly, I think, around 80 or 90 targets. I actually thought he was going to do quite well. So with that, to me, I think the target share for Garrett Wilson is going to be off the charts. I mean, there's really nobody really to contend with. I know he's got Lazard, but Lazard's he's just there. Randall Cobb, talk about old. Randall Cobb is old. And then you've got McCole Hardman. So to me, I think Garrett Wilson is just going to absolutely just feast in this team with Aaron Rodgers. We've seen Aaron Rodgers be able to support Devontae Adams, Jordy Nelson, just really, really good. Greg Jennings, really great players. So for me, I just think at the end of the day, Garrett Wilson, you've already, like you said, you've seen the connection between the two of them. I think Garrett Wilson is going to take a ginormous leap. I think people like him, and they probably have him right around where you have him. But to me, I think he is going to take that huge jump.
Interesting. Yeah, I like him a lot. We'll see. I mean, top 3 is pretty bold. We'll see what happens, but I definitely like him.
Now, what made you, obviously I had a little bit of a larger tier than you did. You really feel like these 4 guys are a clear cut better than, the likes of Stephon Diggs, AJ Brown, CeeDee Lamb?
100%. Yeah, I feel like those top 4 guys are, guys you target in the first round, and, you can't go wrong with any 4 of those guys.
So of this group then, Joe, because you like all 4 of them and you had a first round pick, if you had your choice, which one would you want to walk away with?
Oh, well, I mean, of course, if I have the ability to take him, I'd want Justin Jefferson. I just think he's a top dog on the Vikings offense that loves to pass. It could be his last year with Kirk Cousins. We'll see what they do there. But, yeah, I just think that offense is very friendly. I know they've got Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkins in there, but I just feel like, as far as like why I have him above a Chase even is, Cincinnati has other guys that take targets away from him. And we've seen a guy like T. Higgins also draw a lot of targets as well, where, I mean, that Vikings offense just revolves around Justin Jefferson. So I've got the opportunity to take him. He's the guy.
Yeah, I think I hear you. I mean, I think Jefferson's, he's a staple. I mean, he's been really good. I talk about Garrett Wilson. I really like him. I don't know. I think you might be right. I think Justin Jefferson is really safe. I of this group, right? I like Chase. I would have told you he would take a step further, but I'm worried about the calf. I know you're not worried about the calf. I'm worried about the calf. So I think as a result, his production could slip.
You see Burrow's back at practice today.
I know that, but I understand that, but I'm still concerned about it.
Sure.
Hill, I think he could be good, but possibly he is more likely to possibly take a step back. I don't know. I just think that Justin Jefferson he's just been so dominant. I mean, how could you not want him, right?
Yeah, that's the way I view it. As the kids would say now, he is him.
Wow, that's a beautiful way to end the episode. He is him. Thank you so much for watching. That was our wide receiver rankings and tiers. If you haven't yet, go ahead and check out our running backs and our quarterbacks. We're going to be doing tight ends on our next episode. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time.